Welcome to Michael Potts F1, everything Formula One, but from a photographer's point of view. In this week's vlog, I'd like to look back at the Belgium Grand Prix, having a look at some of my favourite photographs from the weekend, and look ahead to what's going to happen at Zandvoort this weekend. The first photograph I'd like to show you is this shot of Max Verstappen celebrating his win. Now, you're looking at this and you're thinking, well, it's pretty much the same as all the other shots of Max Verstappen celebrating his win this year. This one's special. I think when people look back over Max Verstappen's career, this is going to be one of those races that jump out. It's going to be like his Senna in Monaco moment. It's going to be one of those things that define how we view him as a driver. To put it in context, let me take a few steps back to kind of show you the bigger picture. All the drivers have come back from their 3-week summer holiday. Lewis was in Africa having the time of his life. Charles was sailing around the Mediterranean, but Max was home in Monaco, training, working hard, spending time with his girlfriend. He's come back exceptionally refreshed and very relaxed. If you remember last time out in Hungary, Max had engine issues in qualifying. So for this race, the Red Bull team has decided to take an engine penalty to ensure that he has enough parts to complete the season. In Formula One, each driver is allowed 3 engines throughout the entire year. If they need more engines, they have to take a penalty. That penalty is starting the race on the back of the grid. Red Bull decided to do it at this race because it's a track where you can overtake fairly easily. And this is where the first bit of luck comes in. 5 drivers, including Max's championship rival, Charles Leclerc, all took engine penalties at this race, effectively meaning the back of the grid was in 14th position. The track at Spa is a nightmare for engineers to set their car up, so they always have to compromise on something. Well, that was until Max showed up for qualifying. He was fast everywhere. He produced an incredible qualifying lap, over half a second faster than his nearest rival, which in Formula One terms is huge. That allowed him to start in 14th place. Next to him was Charles Leclerc. On Sunday before the race, no one thought he could win. There was not a single person who was even entertaining the possibility, unless in jest, that Max was going to come from 14th to win the race. They were thinking maybe a podium at best. I mean, he had 2 Mercedes, a Ferrari and a Red Bull to get past. There was no way he was going to win. But yet, after the first corner, he was 10th. And then by lap 8, he was 3rd. And by lap 12, he'd overtaken his teammate to take the lead of the race. It was phenomenal. That is unreal. This photograph of the double fist pump is iconic. It's special because no one thought it would be possible. This race result really is something out of this world. It was like there were 19 racing drivers and then there was Max Verstappen. He's driving so much better these days. He's still exceptionally fast, but he's so much more controlled, so much more calm, so much more just at peace with himself. It's phenomenal to watch. And as the season develops, the Red Bull seems to be getting quicker and quicker. All of this make a potent package. This photograph of Max was taken just after the corner at Le Mans. I've taken this shot very low, just above the barrier, and I've tried to crop it in a way that makes it a little bit more interesting. In post-production, I've removed some of the details just to let you focus on the driver and the car. Before I continue, I think it's important to get an understanding of the track layout, to get an understanding of where these different photographs are being taken. Formula One divides its tracks into 3 sectors. So no matter how long the track is, there's always 3 sectors. Sector 1 is the start of the lap. It's a very short rundown to the first hairpin at La Source. This is a very tight part of the track and there's always a lot of bunching up at the start. From here, it drops downhill to a river called El Rouge. There's a small bridge that goes over the El Rouge River, and then it rises very, very steeply up a hill to a corner that's blind called Radion. This hill is 35 meters high and it's very steep. From Radion, the cars drive down the Camel Straight. This is the fastest part of the track. Here, Alex Albon was doing speeds of 314 kilometers per hour during qualifying. That's 195 miles per hour. Sector 2 starts at a series of corners called Les Combes. This is the first braking area after that long straight. From here, the track goes through some wiggly bits as it goes downhill towards Stavelot. Sector 3 is another fast section. Here the cars are rising up the hill past Blanchimont, all the way up to the bus stop to Caen and back onto the start-finish straight. So the reason I told you all of that was because the next photograph I'm going to show you is of Lewis Hamilton at the start of the race. This is taken from Le Combe corner. That's that first braking zone after the Camel Straight. My original plan was to photograph the grid and then go and photograph the first corner of the race. However, I didn't put my name down for grid access, so I wasn't allowed to go and photograph the grid. I had to come up with another plan. This mistake gave me an opportunity to shoot the start from another part of the track. I decided to shoot from Le Combe As it's the first braking zone after that long camel straight, there's always likely to be some drama. And drama's what we got. So let me run through the sequence. Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso were fighting for second place. Lewis didn't give Fernando very much room, and the two cars came together, clipping Lewis's back wheel and flicking him in the air. I was prepared for some incident to happen, but nothing like this. He almost went vertical before coming down with a real thud. I'm shooting this with a very fast shutter to make sure I capture all of the details. The landing looked very uncomfortable. He was forced to retire his car a few minutes later. I was hoping to have some good news about Ferrari after the summer break. But if anything, it seems like things have got worse for Charles Leclerc. I mean, it was so much bad luck. For everything that went well for Max, things went twice as bad for Charles. I'm not sure it was the best decision for them to take an engine penalty at this race. They kind of had to, because the next race that it's easy to overtake and you can take an engine penalty is Monza. And you can't have a Ferrari starting at the back of the grid at the Monza Grand Prix. That just won't do. Their hand was forced. They had to take their engine penalty here. But then there was the bad luck. Charles was starting next to Max, and he was making his way through the field at the same rate as Max was. However, a piece of plastic got stuck in his engine duct, causing his car to start overheating. So Charles was very unlucky when that happened. He had to stop early to have it removed. That early stop puts him at the back of the grid, and he has to re-overtake pretty much everyone. He eventually gets his way up to 5th place, and the team decided to go for the fastest lap. In Formula 1, the driver that gets the fastest lap gets 1 bonus point. At that moment, Max had that bonus point. It's the right kind of decision to make, but the execution is hopeless. It's such unusual bad luck that it would be impossible to script this if it was a movie. It's unbelievable. It's unnatural. I took this photograph as he was walking back to the garage at the end of the race. It's like he's been dealt a body blow. I think they realized that they just haven't been good enough this year. Maybe those early successes gave them false hope. It feels like they're drifting more towards a battle between Mercedes than continuing a fight with Red Bull. Lewis Hamilton always wears fantastic outfits to the track. And this race, I got particularly lucky in capturing him on each morning. On race day, he wore this brilliant red suit. I got this shot with a fairly wide-angle lens as he's arriving. You can see the clamour of the people around him. There's always a big commotion wherever he arrives. I've darkened some of the people in post-production to make him stand out and the colours really pop off his outfit. It's very cool to have that splash of colour in the paddock. But by far, my most popular photograph on Instagram this whole weekend was a photograph of him arriving on Friday. He's wearing this very unusual balaclava and knitted outfit by GCDS Designs. It's pretty cool. He's got a crocheted heart on his mouth, and this caused such a storm online. So what do you think? Is this an outfit you love or something that you find unusual? It'd be great to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I was pretty lucky with this shot because it was just myself and another photographer, Jay, who managed to capture Lewis in all his glory. The weather was pretty awful. It was drizzling, it was cold, but the two of us stuck to our guns. We waited for Lewis to arrive. He was quite late that day, but we didn't give up, and we got him walking through the paddock pretty much all alone. It was a great moment, and it was great that our persistency paid off. So what makes Spa unique is it's the longest track of the circuit. It's 7 kilometers long. The racetrack was designed in 1921 and was on a series of public roads between Malmedy, Francorchamps and Zandvoort. The first race that they tried to hold was actually called off because they only had one driver. They eventually got a race in 1925. This was actually one of the original tracks of the 1950 World Championship. The track was unbelievably fast even back then, with a lot of drivers being quite scared about coming here. The most famous part of this are the corners Eau Rouge to Raidillon. It's an exceptionally dangerous set of corners. Last year there was a mass car pileup in the W Series, and Lando Norris had a horrific crash in qualifying in the wet. Finally, the circuit has made a lot of changes to improve safety. Not only has it made things safer, but I think from a photography point of view, it's actually made things a lot better. Because they changed the angle of the corner, the cars now appear to be sparking a lot more. Here's a shot of Daniel and his McLaren sparking up the hill. I've shot this with a very fast shutter speed to try and capture the sparks individually. The only downside about this is they've reduced the number of spots we have to photograph this. I had to come down 1 hour before the start of the session to claim my spot. Another shot of Daniel, also taken in qualifying, is from the other side of the track. There's a neat little bridge underneath, which makes getting between the two quite handy. Here I've shot with a very slow shutter speed. It's 1/5 of a second. I quite like this one because the car is still quite sharp, but the lines in the background are blurring quite a lot, and that gives you this real sense of movement and pace. I've managed to keep Daniel's head fairly sharp, but you can see the front of the car is blurring quite a lot. That's because it's moving on a different plane to the camera. Talking of Daniel, it was announced before the start of the race weekend that he won't be racing for McLaren anymore. Daniel managed to win one race with them last year, but since then, things haven't worked out that well, and it's been a bit of a disappointment on both sides. McLaren are going to have to buy him out of his contract, which is reported to be about $20 million. As yet, we don't know where he's going to be racing next year. It was Valtteri Bottas' birthday on Sunday, and a mascot from his favourite Finnish ice hockey team came and gave him his birthday cake. Bottas actually owns 10% of the Lahti Pelicans ice hockey team. It wasn't a great birthday race for him. He got knocked out at the early stages, just after the Lecombe corner. I didn't manage to capture the incident, but I did get a photograph of him beached in the gravel trap after it all happened. It was quite a disappointing end to the race for him, but as he got out, the crowd started singing happy birthday to him, which was quite cute. In other news, Audi is going to be racing in Formula 1 from 2026 onwards. They're coming in initially as an engine partner, but the rumour is they're going to buy a significant stake in the Alfa Romeo team, rebranding it as Audi. It was also announced that Spa is remaining on the calendar for next year. The weather in the Ardennes forest is always really unpredictable, and at the end of the third practice session, the rain came down. It was a bit funny because where I was on the track, it was dry, but I could see on one of the screens, it was pouring down. And I got this shot right at the end of Guan Yu Zhou going up Radion. I've made it a little bit more dramatic in post-production. This weekend, we're off to Zandvoort on Zee in the Netherlands. This is another old school track, located in the sand dunes near one of Holland's seaside towns. Its main characteristics are some extreme banking. It also has phenomenal crowds. Huge Max Verstappen supporters, obviously. There's a lot of orange smoke, and a lot of very, very, very loud music. So if you are coming to the track, bring earplugs. Not for the cars, but for the music. It's loud. This is a home race for me, which means I get to sleep in my own bed, which is quite unusual for Formula 1 photography. Thank you for watching my review into the Belgium Grand Prix. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next week's race in Zandvoort is going to be fascinating. Can Ferrari turn things around? I know I keep asking every week, but hopefully one day they will. Until next week, thank you for watching. Good night.